Vitya Diaries Chapter 14, A Princess and His Dog. Mokyuchin and I rode home in the back of Coach's car with my skates in the passenger seat. In one arm I had my dog, who was sort of sitting in my lap, sort of standing to look out the window, and sort of trying to run to the other side of the car, and in the other arm I had a bag of supplies that the lady sent home with me. There was a vest for him to wear that said service dog in training that he was supposed to wear when we were outside, a bag of the same food that he'd been eating, a clicker trainer, a rubber duck, and half of a blanket. The blanket, she'd explained, smelled like Mokyuchin's mama, and would make him comfortable in his new home. Did that mean it hadn't ever been washed? Coach, I said over the top of my wiggly puppy's head, wrestling to try to keep him still. Should we stop somewhere to get him a bowl or something? Or a bed? All of that is already at the house. Huh? Your aunt and uncle have gone out and bought everything needed. I frowned and Mokyuchin licked my face. When did they do that? When you were locked in your room. Oh, as soon as we got home. Mokyuchin wanted to explore, so I took him all around the property line on the leash and let him walk around while Coach talked to my aunt and uncle. Nose to the ground. It didn't take Mokyu long at all to find lots of interesting smells, and his tail never stopped wagging, not even once. He was so excited. I know, there's a lot of rocks and bugs and stuff, I said. Just wait until we go look in the woods, too. There are birds and squirrels and deer. He looked up at me, nose twitching, brown eyes sparkling, and smiled with pink tongue hanging out. So cute. I was going to die from how cute he was. And of course he had to mark everything. But this was his home. He was going to stay here with us forever, except when he came to school with me, so he needed to mark it. Mokyuchin's territory. It meant he liked it. He was happy. I was happy. Vitya, my aunt called from the back door. We want to meet Mokyuchin. Okay, I called back. Of course they'd want to meet him. He was the best thing ever. Come on, Mokyuchin. Let's go see what stuff they have for you. We ran to the house, both of us panting by the time we got there. And my aunt showed me where Mokyuchin's food and water bowl was before she got me a glass of water, too. Mokyuchin drank by lapping the water up, drenching his muscle in the process, but he looked so happy about it, licking his lips after. Both my aunt and uncle took turns cooing over him, offering pets and praise, and he ate it up. Mokyuchin was definitely a ham, and deservedly so. Best dog. Perfect dog. Then the three adults, me, and Mokyuchin went into the living room to look at all of the toys and things my aunt and uncle had for him. Rawhides, squeaky bones, stuffed animals, brushes, treats. He was one spoiled dog. Once I added the rubber duck and the blanket scrap. He was rolling around in the pile, paws up in the air, making all sorts of happy little grunting noises, looking for all the world like it was the best day of his life. I hoped it was. It was for me, too. I sat on the floor with him so I could rub his belly, which he also seemed to really like, and Coach went over the paperwork one last time with everyone. I had to take Mokyuchin to training sessions twice a week, which was fine, and I had several things that I was supposed to do with him daily. Mostly, it came down to keeping him with me and making sure he was taken care of, which was also just fine with me. I'll leave you to it, Vitya, said Coach as he got off the couch. Make sure to bring Mokyuchin to practice. Mokyuchin was allowed to go to practice. Oh right, the vest. Yeah, I bet he'd like the ice, wouldn't you, Mokyuchin? Mokyu looked at me, tilting his head with his ears all lopsided against the carpet. Coach looked like he wasn't quite sure about the idea, himself, but didn't say anything about it. Instead he shook his head and smiled. I'll see you then, Vitya. Okay, Coach. Take good care of him. I will. I was talking to Mokyuchin. I gaped. Mokyuchin is perfect. Coach chuckled. Of course. And left. After I gave Mokyuchin a tour of the house, I took him for a walk around the neighborhood, then out to the edge of the woods. We didn't go in too far, though, because I didn't want either of us to run into any wolves or boar. A big dog might be able to manage okay, but a young one would probably run headfirst into trouble. When we got back to the house, I gave him a good brushing, fed him, took him back outside to potty. I didn't even mind cleaning up after him. At the end of the day, I got ready for bed, said goodnight to my aunt and uncle, and showed Mokyuchin his little comfy dog bed in my room. He got in, spun around 3 times, and curled up with a whumph and a great big yawn. Good night, Mokyuchin, I said, and crawled into my bed, 2. I scooted to the edge so I could watch him, and he watched me, chin resting on the padded edge. With the curtains, my room was dark enough for sleep, but not dark enough that I couldn't see the details of his curly fur, or his paws and how they were tucked against his belly. I smiled at him and he wagged his tail. "Hey, Mokyu," I whispered. The wagging stopped and he cocked his head at me to listen. "Do you like being on the floor?" His head tilted the other way. "You can come sleep on my bed with me if you want." Mokyu-chin's nose twitched as he sniffed the air, probably thinking it over. I patted the bed. "Come here, Mokyu-chin." "Mokyu-chin, come." He got up, stretched, and walked over to the side of the bed, then sat like he'd been trained to do. Like the good dog that he was, I slithered over until I could wrap my arms around him and drag him up onto the bed with me. "Come on, Mokyu." Then I rolled onto my back, pulling him onto my stomach. He army crawled until he could lick my mouth, front paws stretching on either side of my head, back paws stretching out behind him, tail wagging again. He yawned right in my face, tongue curling, then let his head rest on my neck. I rubbed his back and his sides and listened to him breathe, warm and alive and sleepy. My fingers brushed over his ears, long and soft, to the delicate smooth skin underneath. Mokyu-chin trusted me so much, let me explore his feet and how the fur poked between his toes and pads. I poked his nose and he just sort of looked at me, then went back to sleep. When I stroked his shoulders, he rolled onto his side. Before long, I fell asleep, too, and all I dreamed about Mokyu-chin chasing butterflies. Why, so he's a poodle? Me, yeah. His name is Mokyu-chin. Why, I thought you didn't want a dog. Me, I changed my mind. He's really cute. Why, I guess. What's with the vest? It had been a couple of days, and Mokyu-chin and I were on the train headed to the rink. So far, our travels had been successful. He was great on a leash and pretty polite on transit, even though he got distracted. The vest let him board public transit without a problem, though it turned the heads of everyone else. They all wanted to know what the vest was for. "Service animal?" they asked. "What's he a service animal for? What does she do?" I kept Mokyu-chin close, asking him to sit right against my feet. When we'd gotten a seat, he looked around, smiling at the attention, but I didn't know what to say. The answers I did have I didn't want to give. I'm training him to." Some of the time, that was enough of an answer. They'd fill in the gaps themselves with their own, or get distracted by patting Mokyu-chin, who licked their hands in greeting. Other times, they pressed and pressed. I had his paperwork in my bag and his license in my wallet, but I didn't want everyone to know. No one needed to know why I had a support animal, especially not the people who recognized me, and I was pretty recognizable. I wish they'd leave me alone. And Mokyu-chin, too. The vest even said not to touch him, but somehow they never noticed that. Me, he's my guard dog. Why? Oh, because you're famous. Me, something like that. Why? He's not very scary. Me, he'll get bigger. At the rink, Mokyu-chin and I took a few laps around the building before we went inside so that he wouldn't be restless while I was skating. Sasha looked us over when we came in but went back to skating, and Yorgi stared with wide eyes. Coach came to greet us. "Mokyu-chin, good job bringing Vitya with you," he said. I grinned up at him, even though of course it was me who brought Mokyu-chin to the rink. "He's doing a good job, coach. You'd be proud of him." "I'm sure I would." I sat on the bench and tied Mokyu-chin's leash to the bar, then set to work putting on my skates. My wrist was still in the brace, but it was a lot better than it was before. It hardly hurt at all to lace up my skates. "I wanna work on some quads today, as long as you do your warm-ups and drills first, Vitya." "Okay, coach." Hey," Yorgi said as he came over, hanging on the barrier. "Is that your dog, Viktor?" I fought the urge to hide him, to protect him from my rival, and nodded instead. I didn't want Yorgi of all people to see the vest, or to make fun of him for being a frou-frou dog. "Yeah, he is." "Cool. What's his name?" I ruffled Mokyu's ears, keeping a cautious eye on Yorgi. The last time we'd really spoken, I'd yelled at him. "Mokyu-chin." "Hi, Mokyu-chin," he said. "He's really cute, Viktor. And he's being so good." "Yeah. He's a really good dog." It was too hard to not feel proud of him, which meant that it was also too hard to resist smiling. "Aren't you, Mokyu-chin?" Mokyu-chin wagged his tail, panting out a smile. "And he looks so soft." Yorgi bit his lip. Can I pet him?" Behind me, Coach grunted a sort of laugh and walked away, muttering something about skaters under his breath. Coach wanted me to play nice. I knew that getting along with my rink mates made his job easier and everyone's lives better. So I sighed. Yeah, I guess so. And Yogi joined us as soon as he put on his skate guards. Mokyuchin loved it, of course, though he stayed closer to me than to Yogi the whole time. It was only a couple of minutes anyway before Coach came back and told us to get back on the ice. We had work to do, after all, and my dog needed a nap. On the way home, Mokyuchin and I walked past the convenience store on the opposite side of the street. I kept us going at a brisk pace, stopping only once so he could mark a street lamp, which I decided was a diss against those guys. This was Mokyuchin's turf now, too, and he wasn't going to let anything happen to me. Even so, we weren't going to wait around for anyone to talk to us. I didn't even want to think about what they would say about the vest. Queer and emotionally unstable. What if they attacked Mokyuchin, too? I couldn't let that happen. At dinner, my aunt and uncle tried to give Mokyuchin scraps of chicken. Kiev. No, Mokyuchin isn't supposed to have people food. But Vitya, it's just a little bit. My uncle was a big softie as it turned out. No, I said. Not even a little bit. Vitya, he's so cute. Now my aunt was trying. Are you sure? Chicken is supposed to be good for dogs, isn't it? I frowned at her. Not even chicken. What about the leftover bones? Can he have those? No, especially not chicken bones. Everyone knows that those are bad for dogs. They laughed. Maybe they were just kidding, but they were being crazy. I was going to have to watch them carefully to make sure that they didn't give Mokyuchin anything he wasn't supposed to have. You guys better not teach him any bad habits. But Vitya, they whined. He wants some. I looked from them to Mokyuchin, who was eating dog food out of his bowl, then back to them. No. Oh, Vitya's so serious and responsible. Such a smart young man. I buried my face in my hands. Stop. What about ice cream? Can he have ice cream? No. Were anyone else's families like this? When it came to service training, it was more about training me than training Mokyuchin. Mokka was already part way through the obedience course, but I had to learn how to control him at home and in public. I had to be strict and careful. Mokyuchin was a working dog and my responsibility, no one else's. He was going to take care of me and I was going to take care of him. And they'd been right, too. A poodle was a great fit. Not only were they hypoallergenic with beautiful, non-shedding fur, which the academy board would be happy about, but they were athletic, smart, sporty, and emotionally sensitive dogs. Mokyuchin needed to be exercised just like I needed to be exercised, and he could tell when I was happy or sad or teetering on something else. Anticipating that was one of his jobs, and though it was embarrassing, really embarrassing, working through that with the service group people was actually kind of encouraging. If I was struggling, Mokyuchin would eventually know how to handle it in ways that could help. What I guess I had were called panic attacks brought on by post-traumatic stress, among other things, and Mokyuchin would act as an anchor for that. It was going to be a long process, but he made it easier. It was hard to get too worked up when he was so calm. It didn't take long for us to settle into a routine. Cuddling every night, getting up every morning to go right outside. We had a schedule for walks and feeding, practice, training, and playtime. I worked in hours for figuring out my programs to get back on track for the next season in between our at-home training sessions for basic drills, where I'd coach Mokyuchin on his basic commands. And then, of course, we had leisure time, since Mokyuchin was still just a puppy, and it was summer break after all. I'd take the stereo out in the backyard and we'd lie in the grass together, watching the clouds and the sunflowers sway in the breeze while flipping through the stations to find inspiration. Mokyuchin chased his tennis ball or chewed on the rubber duck, or sometimes just stretched out next to me, content to press against my side. When a song came on that I knew, I'd sing it to him and tell him what I knew about it, since context changed everything. If I didn't know, I'd make something up, since Mokyuchin wouldn't be able to tell, and it was always fun to have a story. Sometimes my aunt would bring us snacks, dog treats and fruit, mostly, and sometimes we'd be left alone for hours until the grass got too cold and we had to retreat inside for dinner. I told Mokyuchin everything. all about the princess and her hidden life in the woods with the fairies, waiting to be rescued. I told him about the tiger living in the giant sunflower, and the unicorn's secrets. I told him about bears and stags and fairy rings and stardust and comets, and how everyone has a soulmate, somewhere out there that they're supposed to find. Mokuchin listened to everything that I had to say, and flopped in my lap to ask for more pets and stories when I was finished. So then I told him about Nico and Gavrik, and life at the academy, and what Felix was like. I explained war paint and how I was a princess, and that it had never felt quite right to just be a boy, and how Coach and Lilia had never made me choose. Then I talked about ballet and skating, and how I loved to dance on ice or off, and that it was my favorite thing in the whole world to do. And then, at night, when we were just about to fall asleep, and Mokuchin was curled up in my arms, eyes closed and breathing deep and even, I told him about my mama and how much I missed her sometimes. One day, I'd be famous enough that Mokuchin wouldn't need to wear a vest. In fact, he'd be so well trained that he'd be able to go without a collar or leash at all, and no one would say anything. He was my best friend, and if the world wanted Viktor Nikiforov, they'd have to take Mokuchin as he was, untethered and unashamed, too.